But if you just respect law enforcement will they'll taper down their reaction. A lot of these reactions, most of these reactions that we're seeing where people end up getting shot are the result of people not obeying the orders of a law enforcement officer.
You have to understand, it goes to training. I mean, gentlemen like Jonathan, while you and I are just sitting here enjoying the afternoon, people who are trained like Jonathan are constantly looking for a threat. It's part of their training, so that when they perceive a threat, their training tells them to neutralize the threat, to stop the threat. And that's what we see, is that that's how police officers are trained, that virtually anything could be a threat.
We're going to have much more about the debate in just a moment, but first, new video of a deadly police shooting is sparking outrage and once again raising questions about a huge police department. The incident involving 2 Los Angeles sheriff deputies was captured on this cell phone video right here, and it's raising questions about whether the suspect was the victim of a cover-up. CNN's Nick Valencia is sorting out all the details for us. Nick, what are you learning?
Hey there, Pamela. The new video was released by the victim's family's attorney. The 8-minute clip was edited to highlight portions of that shooting. In its raw form, the video was part of the district attorney's investigative file. We have to warn you, the report you're about to watch is graphic.
The video picks up after a foot chase of the suspect following a traffic stop in Long Beach, California. The man on the ground, 23-year-old Noel Aguilar. He had fled from police after they tried to question him. They believed he was armed. You can see him struggling as 2 LA County Sheriff's deputies attempt to handcuff him. At one point, Aguilar slips away from the cuffs, and then a gunshot. The painful screams are from Deputy Albert Murad. He doesn't realize it now, but he's been shot in the stomach by his partner, Jose Ruiz. He tells investigators after the shooting, quote, he believed that Aguilar had shot him. In a statement obtained by CNN affiliate KABC, Ruiz says, quote, believing Aguilar was retrieving a weapon and would shoot Murad, he fired his duty weapon. In the video, Ruiz never says that he's the one who fired the shots. The deputies proceed to struggle with Aguilar on the ground.
Yeah, I'm heavy. I got shot. I got nobody. You? I got on the window. Huh? I see nobody. I got shot in the stomach. I didn't shoot nobody. Come on. Stop. Come on, man. Why you gonna put a gun on me?
Ruiz fires a second round, this time into Aguilar. Aguilar's hand was on Ruiz's gun. The deputy later wrote in a statement, the shot prompts Deputy Murad to shoot 3 times into Aguilar's back. Of the shooting, Murad says afterwards, upon hearing his partner and believing that Aguilar was going to shoot him again, he shot Aguilar 3 times in the back from close distance. After a 9-month investigation, the LA District Attorney concluded in February that the deputies, quote, acted in lawful self-defense of others.
The incident took place more than a year ago in May of 2014. Initially, the LA Sheriff's Department told the media that Aguilar had reached for the deputy's gun. They also alleged he was a gang member. Well, a background check into Aguilar by CNN revealed no known criminal history. However, authorities say he was armed with a .45 caliber handgun at the time of the shooting. CNN has reached out to the attorney for Aguilar's family but has not yet heard back. But we did get a statement from the LA Sheriff's Department. They said, quote, homicide investigators did obtain cell phone video of the incident. However, that is only one piece of evidence in the investigation. We welcome any additional video that individuals may have. Both deputies, Pamela, are back to work on the streets of Los Angeles. We should mention that the family has filed a civil lawsuit against the individuals as well as the city. Pamela?
And Nick, you also have some new information about the toxicology report run by police on Aguilar. Is that right?
We got our hands on the paperwork filed by the district attorney's office, their investigative file, and in it we realized that it was reported, I should say, the toxicology report showed that Aguilar had marijuana in his system as well as methamphetamines. He's that 23-year-old that was shot and killed by police. We should also mention in this report that it was well after the shooting that Officer Deputy Murad found out that it was actually his partner that shot him, not Aguilar. So during that whole struggle that we just saw in that report, Murad was under the impression that Aguilar was actually the one that shot him in the stomach, not his partner. Pamela?
Okay, Nick Valencia, thank you so much. And joining me now to discuss all of this, criminal defense attorney Danny Cevallos and CNN law enforcement analyst Jonathan Gilliam. Danny, first to you. We just heard Nick say The deputy thought that Aguilar actually shot him until he later found out that actually no, it was the other deputy. How important is that? Is the fact that he may have believed during that moment that Aguilar was the one that fired that shot?
It is maybe the most important part of the analysis, because citizens would be surprised to learn that police can use lethal force even based on a mistaken belief that a suspect has a weapon, if, and this is the key, that belief was a reasonable one. If the belief that there was a firearm or a deadly weapon and that there was a real threat was a mistaken one, as long as it is a reasonable one based on the facts and circumstances, police may still avoid liability. So critical here, if these police officers were ever charged, critical would be their defense that one brother officer was shot, I believe there was still a firearm, and I acted reasonably, because police are trained, as Jonathan is going to tell us, to stop the threat. They shoot to stop the threat, and if they believe there's a continuing threat, they continue to shoot.
And their training, how much training they've received, I'm sure will be part of this investigation.
Huge.
Jonathan, what is your reaction to that video?
Well, I watched that video over and over. I watched it in slow motion. I watched it in regular speed. And, you know, there's some policies and procedures I think that could be revamped to get people there quicker instead of waiting until it gets to this level. But the critical part of this video is that we have to look at it from the officer's perspective, not the perspective of this video. Officers are not seeing things from this perspective. They're literally 2-3 inches away.
This video, as Nick said, was edited, and it was given to us by the family's attorney.
But the officers are this close to that suspect. They don't necessarily see the whole picture. So when a shot goes off, they've already identified that he has a weapon. The shot goes off. The officer that's been shot knows he's been shot, and he has a reasonable belief that this guy shot him, because he doesn't have a reasonable belief that his partner would shoot him. So this individual who's struggling with them, who has a weapon, there's just been a shot, and now the way he is reacting is the way you would react to a threat. But we have to remember in these videos, it is so close a lot of the times, like in this case right here, that the officers don't have the advantage of having the perspective that we have from this video, and that has to be taken into account as well in a court case when they're going after these officers.
But Danny, on the other side of this, the family says, the family's attorney saying that, look, this is murder. What happened here is murder. We know the family has filed a civil suit against the sheriff's department and demanding charges be filed against these officers. Do you think they have a good case here?
Two separate cases you're talking about. One is the request for criminal charges against these police officers. The second is whether or not they have a viable civil claim. And the reality is there are many more civil lawsuits than there are criminal prosecutions against police officers for unreasonable force. And of course, scholars and citizens sort of disagree on what the reason is for that. So in a case like this, whether or not there is going to be charges is going to depend entirely on the prosecutor, or if there's an independent prosecutor, or whatever system they decide to follow. However, whether or not there is civil liability will again depend not only on the facts that were available to those officers at the time, but also their training. What kind of training did they get to recognize a threat and to recognize a firearm? And did they act consistently with that training? And of course, as we know, the standard for criminal prosecution is much higher than that for civil liability. So that is why you may often find police departments civilly liable.
Right.
Right. Whereas there was no criminal prosecution.
Which I think people are confused by. They say, well, wait a second. I mean,
doesn't feel right.
Right. Isn't the civil settlement, acknowledging that something was wrong here?
And that's why you see in court cases a lot of the times different outcomes than people expect, because they're looking at a video, and then when a jury steps up to the plate, or when a judge is looking at this, they're taking the totality of the circumstances in account. And one thing that is definitely coming to light from all these recent shootings with officers in the videos is that people will see what they want to see in the public's eye. So the court of public opinion is completely different, and justice in the public's eye is different than justice in a court of law.
Isn't it amazing that when videos first came out, both defense attorneys and prosecutors said, finally, we have objectivity. But just in the last couple years since videos have been out, now we have what's called perspective bias. It may be the case that even video is not objective, because video only shows you the vantage point of that camera, and you don't get to see what was available to the actor's eyes at the moment. And here we have a video that was taken maybe feet away from the incident, but yet it obscures, we don't exactly see everything that's going on. So who knew that we'd be talking about videos in this modern era and say, darn it, they're not objective enough.
But the one thing all these videos are showing, if you wrestle with an officer, if you do drugs, if you carry a weapon and you belong to a gang, the chances of you getting shot when you have an encounter with law enforcement goes up. And that's the one thing that is not getting pointed out in all these situations, is that somebody's running from the cops.
That they weren't perfect angels, essentially. Is that the point you're making?
That's correct. And nobody's a perfect angel, but if you just respect law enforcement will they'll taper down their reaction. A lot of these reactions, most of these reactions that we're seeing where people end up getting shot are the result of people not obeying the orders of a law enforcement officer.
You have to understand, it goes to training. I mean, gentlemen like Jonathan, while you and I are just sitting here enjoying the afternoon, people who are trained like Jonathan are constantly looking for a threat. It's part of their training, so that when they perceive a threat, their training tells them to neutralize the threat, to stop the threat. And that's what we see, is that that's how police officers are trained, that virtually anything could be a threat. So then in a case like this, the analysis is after a brother officer has been shot, what was that reason for the shooting, and is there still a present immediate threat?
So to Jonathan's point, saying, look, this is someone who had a gun on him, he was disobeying, it seems, police, and the toxicology report shows that he had methamphetamine in his system. How does that play into all of this?
It is a factor, and in many cases, the kind of drug is a factor as well. However, that factor would not override a situation where, for example, you saw a video where somebody is clearly executed for no good reason. So while it's an important factor because it tells us what kind of behavior the officers may have been perceiving at the time, however, it's always possible that video evidence could override that inference or that presumption that you may draw from a toxicology report. For example, if somebody was on marijuana, from what we know about marijuana, you may draw one inference, but if you have another video that shows that the suspect posed no threat whatsoever, then toxicology becomes suddenly less important in the analysis.
And that's why it's good to have more than just one video.
And the totality of the circumstances that the officers are looking at. If an individual is on methamphetamine, it's likely that the officer can articulate their behavior as being odd. And that's a very important part of this. How are the officers articulating this person's behavior when they act? But I'll tell you, the thing is, when it comes to justice, these lawyers, no offense, are out there talking about justice. Justice, it really goes back to the point of when this starts. If the officers have good policy, if the officers know when they need to call backup, and if people in the culture and the society will step up to the plate and start being more responsible, all this will be fixed, and officers will be reacting differently, and people will be reacting differently to officers. But this is where we have the breakdown of this whole situation, is that training doesn't go all the way a lot of the times. I don't know if that's the case in this circumstance, but definitely when it comes to behavior, people need to modify their behavior when they interact with law enforcement. We can't go down this road.
I think training is key in all of this, because different police departments get different levels of training, and then the question is, how often do they get, go back to have their training again? So anyway, really great conversation with both of you. I'm sure a lot more to discuss here. Jonathan Gilliam, Danny Cevallos, appreciate it.
Hi everybody, my name is Mike. This is my YouTube page, Mox News. Thanks for tuning in. Right, so this video, I wanted to point out a couple things. It's clear that the media is working with these cop suckers, whoever they are. They're some kind of police analyst people, but they're working with them, and they're working with the police to brainwash the public into, siding with the cops. It's, oh, look, the cops didn't do anything wrong. Well, this video points out that this shooting is 100% the cops' fault. You can say, oh, you don't question what the cops say. Well, if you're gonna get murdered by the fucking cops, maybe there's a reason that you run away from the cops. Anybody ever think of mentioning that in this video? No. I imagine there's a lot of people that this guy's age, they said he was 23, I think, a lot of people this guy's age who think the cops are going to murder them. We've seen it happen over and over and over. Okay? So maybe he had, in his own mind, very, very good reason for running. And you know what really bugs me about this video is it keeps saying in the titles at the bottom of the screen, it keeps saying new evidence of a cover-up. And I don't hear any discussion going on about a cover-up. I've watched the video at least twice and I haven't heard any details of a cover-up, which seems like really important part of the story. If that's what's going on, it shows, okay, here we go. We got dirty cops that lie, covering up another murder, another execution in the streets of America. And there doesn't seem to be any discussion about this, whatever it says, new evidence of a cover-up. I don't. And this guy, you know, you have to submit to cops. You have to submit to cops. It's good advice. It's good advice. You need to submit to cops. I mean, you're not going to win against the cops. So that's probably good advice. But at the same time, the cops are out of control. The cops are murdering people across the country over and over again. Look, the only reason this cop got shot is because the other cop was doing shitty policing. Why did he have his gun out when he's wrestling with the suspect? Again, he's a suspect. He's not even an actual criminal yet. He wasn't convicted of anything.
Initially, the LA Sheriff's Department told the media that Aguilar had reached for the deputy's gun. They also alleged he was a gang member. Well, a background check into Aguilar by CNN revealed no known criminal history.
Again, he's a suspect. He's not even an actual criminal yet. He wasn't convicted of anything. They're trying to convict him here. Oh, he had methamphetamine in his system. Didn't say he had methamphetamine on him. He had it in his system. They're trying to convict him and make him, you know, and again, last week I published a story about a dirty drug lab in Canada. We've seen the dirty drug labs from one side of the country to the other, where it's just a bunch of bullshit that adds to the cover-up. Oh, he had a gun on him. Here, Van Jones. You know, we all know cops drop guns at the scene of crime. Big city cops all carry guns.
You know, it's very hard to know because now the trust is gone. You don't actually see the gun. You know, they draw a circle and say, oh, that's a gun. Well, it could be a gun. It could just be his hand. It's grainy. So now you're relying on trust. You know that some Chicago cops and other big city cops do have what they call throwdown guns, you know, guns that they drop at the scene.
Oh, he had a gun on him. Here, Van Jones. You know, we all know cops drop guns at the scene of crime. Big city cops all carry guns, or some of them carry guns to drop at the scene of crimes. That's Van Jones. Van Jones was an advisor to President Obama in the White House. In the White House, while he's in the White House, until a document came out that said, oh, Van Jones believes that there's a conspiracy behind 9/11. He signed some kind of document that said that he believed the government's involved in a cover-up on 9/11. Duh! We all fucking know that. But he got, you know, Obama had to separate himself from Van Jones. I'm really surprised he's an analyst on CNN. But I digress. Drop gun. Again, the only reason this cop got shot is because this other piece of shit cop had his gun out when he's wrestling with the guy on the ground. You don't do that. You need both hands to wrestle with someone. You don't have your gun out during that time. He doesn't tell the other cop. They said in the story, the cop didn't find out about it until way later.
Say the deputy thought that Aguilar actually shot him until he later found out that actually no, it was the other deputy. How important is that?
They said in the story, the cop didn't find out about it until way later. That it was probably ballistics. Probably until the ballistics came out, they said, oh yeah, I shot you. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm a piece of shit cop. I just want to point this out because it seems like the news story kind of left out a thing or two. Yesterday I made a video about cartoons and asked for your help, and I didn't get any. I'm not out here asking for your help so that I can buy shit. I'm not a consumer. Okay, I don't buy shit. I buy food. And I need your help. I'm running out of disk space. I have to buy 1 2 terabyte hard drive a month, which is cheaper than DVDs and faster than DVDs. But, you know, it costs money. And I'm running out of space on the computer. I need to buy a couple hard drives right away. I buy at least 1 a month. So video takes a lot of room on the computer. Please help. I'm not asking you for help because it is what I want to spend my time doing. Asking you for help because I'd like to continue to do this. I'd like to continue to do Mox News on YouTube, and it will not happen without your help. Okay, I don't know how to be more clear than that. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your continued support. Stay cool. Wednesday is this war is going to end. Till that day.
I'm the leading state sponsor of terrorism.